Good morning, guys. We are going through chapter 13, section 3. It is on relationships in equations and graphs. So we are still using independent and dependent variables. And yesterday you guys learned how to write equations. I am going to do a video that goes over your homework from yesterday because I know a lot of you had questions. So look for that this afternoon. Today's lesson will give you the equation, and then you need to use that equation to graph something. So your homework tonight is 3 questions. 2 of them are using a graph and asking you to look at a graph. There is another question that just uses an equation for you guys to fill in. So I'm going to go over several examples with you. 2 of them are graphing. And then some of them are from the more practice out of your workbook, where it asks you to figure out what goes on the x-axis and what goes on the y-axis, which relates to the independent and dependent variable. So we're going to go over a couple of different types of examples so you guys can see what you are supposed to do. Again, I will do a video on your homework from yesterday because I know there were several that asked questions about equations in the table, so I will go over your homework. Okay. So looking at this, and for those of you that haven't looked at the more practice page that is before your homework, so it's the front side of your homework page, these examples that I'm going over come from that and have them explained on paper as well. So if you want to follow along, that's where I'm finding these. They are in your workbook. I know it already has the answer there for you, but just going over it and showing you where the work comes from instead of just kind of seeing the answer already there is a little bit different. So this opening scenario says the equation D equals 9H. So remember a letter next to a number, so the 9H means multiplication. So it describes the constant rate meaning that it's increasing by the same thing every time. If it's constant, it's continuing at the same rate. So at which Marissa earns D dollars babysitting H hours. So I know that D represents dollars and I know that H represents hours. Then make a graph to show the relationship between D and H. So first of all, and I know it's not on the screen, but thinking about what would be the independent and the dependent variable. So the way that the equation is set up kind of helps you with that already. So the end result is going to be your dependent variable. So if you think about this question and I have money earned in hours that I'm babysitting, so the amount in which Marissa earns depends upon how many hours she's babysitting. So looking at the equation, the H is right here and the D is it's equal to or my total. So my dependent is going to be the dollars earned, or you can just write dollars or earned. So my dependent variable is my end result, or it depends upon the independent variable. If the independent variable, so it's by itself, changes, then it's going to change my dependent. So think about if you're dependent upon somebody, you're relying on that person, your dependent relies on your independent variable. So your independent is the hours that she babysat. So just to give you that information to kind of help better understand independent and dependent variables. So you are going to make a graph to show the relationship. So the easiest way to do this is to make a table first and then make the graph. So I filled in a table with the information that I'm going to use. So I'm gonna first put the hours that she babysat. Your scenario or your question is not necessarily going to give you the hours that she babysat. The only thing your question is giving you is an equation. So when you are doing this, you can kind of pick your own hours to fill in this equation. So you'll see what we're going to do in a second with filling it in. So I'm just going to use 0, 1, and 2 just to start off with. If you want to use 1, 2, 3, that's fine as well. Actually, I'm going to use 0, 1, and 3 because that's what your book does, just so you guys can see it in your book as well. So I have 0 hours. I'm going to put 1 here, and then I'm going to put 3 here. So I did not get these numbers from anywhere in the equation. I just picked them. So you don't worry about where I got them from. You are picking them. If you want to do 10, 11, and 12, that's up to you. Stick with something that's simple though. So when you're multiplying, it's not overly complicated for you. So then my next column is going to be my equation. So my equation is D equals 9H. So my hours of babysitting was represented by H, and I can see that in my scenario up here, and then dollars earned was represented by D. So my hours H is this in my equation. So this right here is H. So if I have hours of babysitting, or H, I'm going to fill that in this box. So I have 9 times 0, I have 9 times 1, and then I have 9 times 3. Okay, so I didn't solve anything. All I did was write it out now. These are all going to give you D is equal to, so I'm just filling in 9 times the hours that she babysat that you guys picked. So then I have dollars earned. If she babysits 0 hours, I have 9 times 0 is going to give me 0. Then if I babysat for 1 hour and I'm making $9 an hour, that's what that represents. 9 times 1 is 9. And then if I babysat for 3 hours, I would multiply 9 times 3 and get 27. Okay, so those are what my end result is. Then my last column is going to be HD. So when you're graphing, it's X, Y, but I just put HD to show you what they are. So the X, in this case, the H, the first number is the one that you guys filled in. So it's the number that you're putting in the situation. So on this one, I have 0, then I have 1, then I have 3. Remember, when you are writing coordinates, you use your parentheses and then a comma to separate them, and the X always comes first. So then my Y is going to be my end result, or my dollars earned in this situation. So if I worked 0 hours, I earned 0 money. If I worked 1 hour, I earned $9. And if I babysat for 3 hours, I earned 27. Okay, so those are the numbers that I'm going to use to graph. So the 0, 0, the 1, 9, and the 3, 27 are what I'm going to use to graph. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the next slide. I'm still using these 3 and I'll rewrite them on the next slide, but now I'm going to go ahead and graph. So remember, when you are graphing, and I'm just rewriting the coordinates, I had 0, 0. When I spent 1 hour babysitting, I had 9, and 3 hours gave me 27. So this is X, this is Y. So remember, when you are graphing, you need to make sure you label the X and the Y axis. In your book, it's already labeled with X and Y for you, so you at least know which one of those is correct. So my X in this case is my first number, which was represented by H. So this is going to be hours babysat, or you can just put hours. And this is going to be the amount that she earned. Sorry guys, it's difficult to write sideways on a computer. So I'm going to graph them. So remember, when you are graphing, you need to move along the X or across first and then up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and graph 0, 0. So 0, 0 is just at the origin right here. Let me use some different colors so you guys can see it. So it's just right here at 0, 0. Remember, 0, 0 is called your origin. Then when I worked 1 hour, so this is hours. So when I worked 1 hour, I made $9. And then my graph does not go up to 27. I'm just gonna continue this line up some and say that 27 is right here. So in your example, in your homework, your answer will not go up that high. So if I worked 3 hours, so I'm now moving 3 over, and then I'm going to move up 27, which I'm just going to say is right here. So that is how you graph it. So when you guys do this, you should be able to draw a line, a straight line, and have all of your points on the line. So that's all this question is asking you to do. So it's just asking you to use a graph. The example in your homework, you don't necessarily need to make a table for. It would be easier to help you understand, but that is your decision if you want to do that. So the example in your homework talks about manuals and how many pages you have to read. So it tells you the equation and then it gives you one of the points. So you can kind of use that point to figure out where your other points are going to be. So going over some other examples, and the next set of examples are in that more practice section in your workbook. So the page right before your homework where it kind of gives you the lesson summary. So it says, determine which labels should appear on the x-axis and y-axis of the graph that represents this scenario. So another word, this is relating to the independent and dependent variables that we did. So your x-axis, so to remind you of that. So I have a graph, this is x, this is y. So your x-axis is going to be your independent, if that helps you, and then your y is your dependent. So your independent is kind of what's changing along the bottom. So when we just did hours, and your hours earned affected how much money you made in the end. So it's independent across and then dependent up top. So if that helps you at all, in these examples, it kind of tells you what y and x is. So for this first equation, it says the equation y equals x plus 5 shows the total dollar amount y that Jason receives in a week by completing x chores. So this example kind of tells you what should be where based on the y and the x. So my question is asking what should be on the x-axis and what should be on the y-axis. So on the x-axis, or this bottom part, if you read the question, it says in a week by completing x chores. So x would be the number of chores that he completes. And then my y, the other situation that I have in this, and it actually tells you what y is right here. It says the total dollar amount y is what he receives when he completes those chores. So y is going to be the total earned. And then my second question down here says the equation y equals 6x represents the total miles that Kayla runs in x hours. So it tells me x hours right here, and it represents the total miles. So again, I have x, and then I have y. So my x is going to be hours, and then my y is going to be total miles. You can add total miles that she runs. I'm just going to put total miles. So that would be how you kind of break that down and figure out which one goes where. The equation also kind of helps you out with that. the equation. Some of them will use X and Y in the equation, so you can actually see which one is what. So your X is your independent, and then the one that you change, and then the dependent is the one that's going to change based on your independent one. So looking at one more example, and this one is in your hardback textbook. It's not in your workbook, but I just wanted to give you guys one more example of another way that you could see this. So it says a deli is running a special where customers receive free chicken. Use the graph to find how many pounds of chicken you receive if you pay for 6 pounds. What are the rules of this special the deli is running? So first of all, thinking about my independent and my dependent variable, if in the last example, I labeled this as X and this is Y and said that your X was your independent. So your independent is the chicken you paid for. If you also read the question, you guys can kind of think about that. If I pay for a certain amount of chicken, I'm going to then receive some for free. So how much I buy or how much I get for free depends upon how much I buy. So then my dependent would be chicken for free. I'm just going to put chicken free. So how much chicken I get for free depends upon how much chicken I bought or how much chicken I actually paid for. So looking at this graph, and there is a point on this graph already. It is at, I'm going to go over, it's at 6 this way and then up 7. So this point is at 6, 7. So if I'm going back and looking at the question, it says use the graph to find how many pounds of chicken you receive if you pay for 6 of them. So looking at this, if I paid for 6 pounds, so this is how much I paid for, was 6. So I'm going to go up to 6 right here. So I paid for 6 of them, but I received 7 pounds. So think about what the difference is between those. So it's an extra pound. So when I paid for 6 pounds of chicken, I got 1 for free. Okay. So whenever you are doing this, that is going to be your rule. If I were to draw a line, and it's not going to be completely accurate on this. So if I then paid for 5 pounds of chicken down here and went up, and I know it's not exactly at 6, doing it on a computer without a ruler is a little bit more tricky. So if I paid for 5 and it meets at 6, again, the difference would be plus 1. So the rule, so it asks what rule is the deli running? So if each one is adding by 1, the rule would be that if I bought chicken, I get a pound for free. You could keep going down the line and showing that. So at 4 pounds that I paid for, it would be at 5. So I bought 4, but I received 5. So the rule is when you buy chicken, you get 1 pound for free. Okay. If you guys have questions, please reach out to me. Reach out to me during the day so you don't struggle all day long on your homework. If you have questions, please ask. Most of you are doing well on your homework. The big thing is making sure that you guys are reading all of the directions. So make sure that you are reading directions, you're looking at them. If you have questions, ask me. Don't struggle with your homework all day long and get defeated and discouraged. Just ask me, even if it's through email. You can say, I don't understand this question. If you don't understand something, please let me know what you don't understand. So I hope this helps. Again, I will post a second video this afternoon going over your homework from yesterday with the graphs, because I know a lot of you struggled with the graphing or the tables, excuse me, and making an equation from them. So I will do that, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. You are halfway through the week. Bye, guys.